Ladies and gents out there in the great wide world, welcome back to Real Estate Bites. I appreciate you guys joining me once again. This is episode number 102. So today's topic of the day, I found this article online on Yahoo Finance. The headline caught my attention and it pulled me in. But when I got to reading it, it was just another reminder why I always tell you guys, listen, be very wary about what you read in the news. Be very wary about the sources of these news stories and how good they really are, right? So let me just take you to the story, all right? So I'm browsing around. I get these feeds, as I talk about oftentimes, and they send me news stories. And I see this one in my real estate investment feed that says, the best houses are the ones that are really dated. Graham Stevens' surprising wealth building strategy. Now, listen, I'm into it. I want to know about a surprising wealth building strategy. That sounds fantastic to me. I want to know about all kinds of wealth building strategies, especially the surprising ones that no one else knows about. That's what I want to learn about. Maybe I have an edge there. So I dig into this article. I'm not going to read a whole bunch. Here is the basic gist of the article. It's in this subheading right here: buy undervalued properties that you can fix up. Anybody surprised out there? I didn't think so. Okay, so I saw this and I read through this article, and so immediately I go and I take a look at who is this author, Mark Guberti. I do a little bit of research on Mark and find out that Mr. Guberti is he's a young fella. In 2014, he won an award, a national award. So he's talented for sure, as a teenage entrepreneurial writer. Okay, so he's still in high school at the time he writes this. So fast forward 11 years, sub 30. Obviously not very well seasoned in the world of business, especially real estate investment, because buying properties that you can fix up, that is not surprising. That is not new. That is what every decent real estate investor I've ever met does. That is a strategy that not only outdates my career in real estate and or real estate investment, it pretty much outdates my entire life. I'm certain of that. I'm pretty sure that while maybe not mainstream as it is today, with hundreds of books being written about how to fix up a house, how to flip a house, how to buy and hold, right? With the vast majority of it being buy a piece of crap, gussy it up, and then put it on the market, whether it's for sale or for rental, right? This has been happening since people have been investing in real estate. It's not a surprise. So it makes me wonder who Mr. Guberti's audience was. Is he still writing to teenagers who this might be a surprise to? I don't know. I don't want to get terribly critical with young Mark Guberti. He's just doing a job. But the fact of the matter remains, if you're looking for financial advice in the news, advice about real estate and or real estate investments, be careful where you're going. I can't imagine that Mark Guberti writing an article about a surprising wealth building strategy of buying up houses in poor condition, fixing them up to increase their equity and their value, and then deploying them to the marketplace either as a rental or a resale property. That is surprising to him. Then he has very little, and I would say probably zero experience in the world of real estate investment. Not sure that that's the fella you want to get your real estate investment news from. If you're looking for news or details or data about the marketplace, find a local pro, find a local agent who's full-time, who's plugged in, and who deals in this stuff. The agent who has investment properties, the agent who is buying and selling dozens and dozens of properties a year, that's who you want to talk to. They not only have access to plenty of data to show you what's going on in the marketplace, but they're also on top of consumer sentiment, which is a huge, huge factor in what's going on in the marketplace. How are buyers and sellers feeling about the marketplace, and how is that affecting their decision making? That is a gigantic thing that very few people talk about, okay? Buyer and seller sentiment matter in a big way. And you're not going to get that from a national news story syndicated by a freelance entrepreneurial writer who has zero experience in real estate investment. All right. So that is my soapbox and my spiel. Now, listen, there's one other line in this article that stuck out to me. Kind of made me chortle a little bit to myself, but it's worth reading and talking about. Okay. So it's right back here underneath that subline, that subheading right here. Some sellers won't want to waste their time renovating a home and prefer to sell it at a discount. Let me read that again. Some sellers won't want to waste their time renovating a home and prefer to sell it at a discount. So why that line sticks out to me, and I find it somewhat humorous, is because usually it's the converse of that line that I see as a reality. I see a lot of sellers who don't spend any time doing anything to their home and expect to sell it at a market premium. Okay, that's what I see most often in the marketplace. People who want to put very, very little time and effort into getting their house updated, up to snuff and market ready, but expect to get a market premium, and they're disappointed either by my opinion of what they can get for their house or by the truth of the marketplace, right? Because in the end, it's the marketplace that makes us liars or truth tellers. Okay, if you want to overprice a house, listen, I'm going to give you my advice on what I think a home is worth and what I think is a good list price and why we're going to strategize it that way. And if you tell me, no, Jonathan, I hear what you're saying, but I want to list it, 5, 10, 15% higher than what you're saying. Okay, let's go. Because in the end, and what I'll tell you is the market will tell us how close we are to correct. If we're right on the money, it's going to sell quickly in this seller's market and at or around list price. If we're underpriced, we're going to get a bunch of offers. It's going to be very stressful waiting through them. And that price, it's going to sell significantly above the list price. And of course, if we're overpriced, we're going to sit and wait around until we drop the price to reality. And then we'll finally get that thing under contract. Okay. So sellers, if you don't waste your time renovating a home, you will be selling it at a discount. That is the story now, all right? It is no longer 2022 where you can basically name your price and the market is accelerating so quickly that people are coming in and buying and home values they're just soaring month after month over month over month. We're not in that market anymore. We are, yes, still in a low inventory seller's market, but buyer sentiment is lower than it was a year ago. All right. Significantly lower than it was 2 years ago. I would say it matches the sentiment that we had right after interest rates shot up to 8%. All right. When everybody was, whoa, what's going on? Why is this happening? Are they going to stop? And buyers backed off because they thought that rates were just going to keep climbing, and they were losing the ability to buy the house that 4, 5, 6 months ago they could afford. Now they could no longer afford it, and buyers were backing out of the market. It's the same sort of sentiment, not about the same reason. I think there's a lot of FUD in the marketplace, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I think, tariffs, I think policy, I think, there's just a lot of questions, and a lot of buyers are being hesitant. But nevertheless, if you don't want to waste your time renovating the house, you will be selling at a discount. All right. Enough said about all that. Let's get into last week's sales statistics, and then we'll wrap this week's program up. So let me pull in my stats here. As you guys know, if you're a frequent watcher, and if you're not, you'll hear this for the first time. I pull all these stats from the local MLS. So I'm not scouring Zillow and Realtor for sale by owners. They are such a small percentage of the marketplace that it's not worth doing that extra work, honestly. So these are the homes. These stats come from the MLS, specifically in Lorain County, where I'm based and where I operate. And but there's enough activity here and enough of a sample size that I feel it represents the greater Midwest pretty well. The trends that we see here represent, the Midwest pretty well. I mean, Lorain County is not Cuyahoga County. It's not Summit County, where you have large urban centers that kind of throw things, you know, sideways a little bit. Lorain County is a little more similar to, say, a Medina County, a Lake County in its activity, you know, but by and large, the trends that I see here, I'm seeing across the country with the exception of the coast. So let me get into it. This morning when I woke up and checked these stats out here, there were 465 single-family homes and condominiums for sale. Those are the units that I keep track of. I don't look at multifamily, nor do I look at mobile homes. 465 units for sale. There were 69 sales closed in the week prior to the show. The median square foot of homes sold was 1,684 square feet. They sold at a median price of $262,000. The median square foot price was $171.49. You can see here, since Q2 wrapped up and we're tracking Q3, only 1 week have we had it dip below 170, and that was the very first week. All right. And you can see we're 157. And in Q2, we saw 157, 163, 163, 162, right? Only once in the 6 weeks since the beginning of Q3 have we gone under 170, and that was at 168.50. Folks, homes are continuing to increase in price. That is what this column is telling me. All right. Median days on market for the homes that sold last week was 15. The interest rate for a 30-year conventional note was 6.56%. And the big sale of the week was $990,000 in Southport and Avon Lake. Let's go ahead and take a look at this beauty. All right, so this monster, 3,688 square feet above ground. There was another 1,400 square feet below ground that was finished. That is not included in the living space. So you got a 3,700 square foot above ground home, 5 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, built in 2022. This is what you can get for right around $1 million here in Avon Lake. So let's take a look at this beauty. Some nice features inside here. Obviously, a beautiful neighborhood. Decent lot, nice space. Love having some water out back. That would have been a nice pick. You know, I mean, you could sit back here in your covered back patio and look at water. That's fantastic, right? So anyways, we'll get inside and see some of these architectural features that they tied in here. Love these windows above the door frame. It's just a really classy touch. Big, beautiful windows. The ceiling to floor fireplace. It's great. When I first looked at this picture, I thought for sure I was looking at virtual staging when I looked at these first. Well, where'd it go? But the more I went through, I realized, no, this is not virtual staging. This is right there. Virtual staging doesn't keep stuff like that in there. This is just a beautifully staged home that looks amazing. Not surprised they sold this for a touch under $1 million. They originally listed it for $999,000, and it's sold for $9K less. Not a bad reduction for a home of this size and a price that's that high. As you can see, I mean, built in 2022, everything's modern, everything's on trend, everything's absolutely gorgeous. Monster laundry room, huh? Nice, big, beautiful trade ceiling. Yeah. As you would expect for $1 million, it's a beauty. We'll get into the basement here in a second. Love seeing how the basements are all done up in these big homes. This one, surprisingly empty. You know, I expected to see just a little bit more going on in there, but hey, what you're going to do is that's a nice view right there. That's a nice view right there. That's it. That's the big sale of the week. I don't even know if you guys got to see any of that. If you didn't, I apologize. At any rate, that's the show for this week. I appreciate you guys joining me. And I'll see you next week. As always, take care of yourselves. Take care of one another. I love you, people.